Howdy, Immortallium here, and welcome to Cultured Immortallium. And anyone who's familiar with, the topics of hentai and all of that stuff will know that a big part of the categorization of it is through the use of tags. Tags basically are a way to kind of categorize these. You can click on it and you'll see all of the stuff that are part of that tag listed all there. And also, tags are also very helpful because they also let you know what you're going to be experiencing within the story. Now, admittedly, sometimes, this can essentially amount to spoilers, but considering how nasty hentai can sometimes get, it's usually good to be able to know beforehand what exactly you're getting yourself into. So, in terms of gathering these tags, first off, these tags are going to be very large images as part of this tier maker, simply because trying to make them squares or even landscapes cuts out a big part of it. Maybe near the end, I might make it smaller or something, but for the moment, it's going to be big. Next, I want to discuss how I came across these tags. So basically, I used three different sources to gather these tags. The first one I went to was on Faku. Basically, I went to their tag section on Faku, went through all the tags, gathered as many of them as I could. There were a couple that I skipped. Obviously, for instance, they had a tag for box sets, and I was like, well, box set isn't relevant in this case, so I skipped that one. But I got most of them included. I then went to Iridori Comics to take a look through their tags, and I think I got one, maybe two more tags from Iridori Comics on top of that. But then I was like, okay, well, these are, official companies and stuff, selling this stuff in English. Their tags aren't going to be, that extreme. Even though for many people they probably would be. So I decided to go to I basically typed into Google cursed hentai tags, and I came across a forum thread on Mal. Basically, what kind of hentai tags disgust you, and I went through most, if not all, of the thread there, and take a look at all the posts to find these tags that a lot of these English publishers wouldn't be including as tags because of how, questionable they are. So I just took a bunch of them from there and added them in so that, we got, a bit of an array here. Because, we could just start off squeaky clean. Well, I say that. Squeaky clean by hentai standards is what I mean. But I wanted to kind of get a full range, like a larger range, just so that people know more about this stuff, about what kind of stuff to expect. Obviously, part of the reason I set up this channel in the first place is because I do think there is artistic merit to hentai. I think it's a very interesting area, but I also think it's a very problematic area because there's not enough discussion about hentai. And because of that, in order to kind of make their way through the world, these companies have to release extreme content that appeal to a specific niche. And, because they're all fictionalized, it's relatively okay. But I do think it's still worth having that discussion just so that people can help process hentai better, to be able to kind of discuss it more and to be able to let companies know more about what it is that draws people to hentai in the first place. Anyway, with all that being said and done, hopefully I haven't missed out on anything. Let's go ahead and get started because, oh boy, this first tag. So I wanted to kind of start on a more kind of lighthearted note, but because of the fact that this is alphabetical, you can see the very first tag we have is yeah, I'll go into that. Actually, I should probably explain these tiers as well. So basically, I've made this 7 different tiers. Almost tells me immediately, which means, if it's got that tag, I really want to read it. And it would be very hard to put me off of it. Now, obviously, I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment, I think, actually. Really makes me want to read. It's basically just a weaker version of the first tier. I do want to read it a lot, but I can still be kind of off-put depending on circumstances. I'm curious. I'm curious just means, nice, but, it not too big of a deal. Don't really care either way. Just that one's just for like, doesn't make much of a difference to me. There's a few of these tags where it's like, I'm indifferent to it, so I don't really care. A little off-putting, but maybe I could deal with it. So if I see that tag, I'm like, I don't know about that one. But, you know, if there's still enough about it that I'm interested in, I will go ahead and read it. Gonna have to work hard to interest me. Basically, it means I don't seek that kind of content out. Usually, it's quite, you know, off-putting to me. But potentially, if there's, you know, something else to go for it, but they'd have to work very hard to get me to be interested in it. And then instant turn off is just like, if I see that tag, I'm immediately like, oh god, I don't want to experience this. And I would say that it's a near impossible to get me to read it. I won't say never, because, you know, there's probably going to be exceptions for everything. But basically, if it's in there, it means I really don't like that content. I don't want to be covering that content, etc., etc. Anyway, with all that being said and done, let's start it. And we are starting with abortion. Yeah, that's an instant turnoff for me. So I don't get why someone would see that as sexy. But then again, this is all to do with tastes and all that kind of stuff. So in that case, you know, there's going to be something for everyone. But that really isn't for me. I really hate that idea. Anytime I've seen it in like a movie or a piece of media, it's always like gross and disgusting. And the idea of trying to combine that with something that's meant to arouse you is really, really off-putting. So I don't want to see that in hentai at all. Ahagao. Don't really care either way. They make a face. It's like, whatever. Like, you know, obviously there's a lot of very, you know, memes about it and, you know, a lot of merchandising about it now. But, like, to me, I'm just indifferent to it. If they make that face, whatever. I don't really care. Oh, actually, the other thing I should probably mention as well before I continue on with this tier list is a lot of these tags often go hand in hand with something else. I'm going to be trying to look at the tag specifically by itself. But in the event that I can't separate it out from other tags, I'll kind of explain my reasoning behind, you know, where I place it. Anyway, on to Alien. So the reason I got reminded of there is that Alien usually like has a lot of other stuff going on. But if we're just talking about the concept of, you know, a hentai about an alien, then it's really kind of don't really care either way. Now, in reality, this would probably be going with a lot of other stuff that would end up a bit down here. But, you know, the concept of it, don't really care. Amputee. I mean, the thing is, amputee isn't always about fetishizing amputees. There is the potential for there to be, you know, some like sweet romantic stories about, you know, someone who just happens to be an amputee. So taking that into account, I guess I'll put it there. Like, you know, it's seeing that tag, I'm going to be very worried. But I'm not saying it's impossible to get me to, you know, experience it. It's just going to have to work really hard to do so. Anal, not really that big of a fan of it. Maybe I'm just thinking of the hygiene of it. But, you know, it's what it is. If it's in a story and it's, you know, whatever, then it's fine. There's something to do with anal, actually, that we'll get onto later. But as for anal itself, it's a little off-putting, but I can deal with it. Apron, don't really care. So there's this thing, this cliche, I guess, of someone wearing an apron but not wearing anything else. So like their entire like back part is exposed and stuff. And I don't know, I don't really get it, but I'm not really put off by it at all. It's just, you know, kind of there. So that's my kind of attitude to it. Armpit fetish? Not really an armpit person to be. Like, I didn't know for a long time that people were into armpits. But there's a surprising amount of people that aren't in armpits. And if we're talking like, you know, like for instance, armpit sex, for instance. Like, I guess I would go here because You know, if it's part of the story and it's not too focused on, then, you know, I can get over it. But, you know, again, it's not something that I would actively be looking for. But it's not really off-putting too much. Just a little bit. Bathhouse. I guess this is more of a I'm curious situation. So a bathhouse, we're talking like an onsen and that kind of thing. And there's, you know, a lot of kind of neat little stories you can tell about that in kind of environment. It's not really a draw in and of itself. It's more of a tease for the other types of stories that can be told at a bathhouse. But, you know, I can, you know, like I wouldn't mind. If I look at it, I am actually curious. So yeah, that actually is a very good example of the tier there. Bathroom. Now, with bathroom, what they simply mean, just to clarify, they don't mean, you know, any of the other things that might be associated with the word bathroom. They just literally mean in the bathroom at your own house, you know, where you wash yourself and have showers and all that kind of stuff. And in that situation, I guess that would also be this one, just because, again, it teases a lot of potentials, but in and of itself, it isn't really drawing me in too much. It's just, you know, kind of interesting. BDSM. Okay, BDSM, I mean, if we're talking about BDSM as applying to either partner or any of the partners, I'm not super into it, so I'm gonna probably put it there. I don't know, I just don't really care for, you know, having someone be restrained, even if they're into it. I don't necessarily like to see that. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna do here. Beach. So the beach often goes hand in hand with another one later on. In and of itself, the beach, I guess it's kind of a don't care either way kind of situation. Like, I don't know, it's just, again, it kind of matches up with a lot of things, but with regards to itself, literally just the concept, it doesn't really make much of a difference to me, to be completely honest. Same thing with beauty mark. Now, I don't really get why people find a beauty mark sexy, but I don't really recall ever seeing, you know, a hentai, either a manga or an anime or a visual novel or whatever, where they focus too much on the beauty mark. It always just kind of happens to be there. Sometimes the beauty mark is used as like a story element of like, oh, it's you because you have that beauty mark. But, you know, in and of itself, it doesn't really make any difference to me. Bestiality. Now, I'm going to put in an instant turn off, but I do have a... Oh, also, I'm not really rating these on the actual shelves, just to say. Bestiality. So, I don't like it, and it's super off-putting to me. But I did actually read something many, many years ago that kind of fits into that category. It was the first 2 volumes of a manga called Crimson Spell. And I remember, I think it was near the end of the 2nd volume, there is a bit where Snakes gives a guy a blowjob. I was not enthused about that at all. And if I see that tag, that is immediately an instant turn off. But I have, I guess, experienced it in one way or another with that. Big areole. Now, let me think now. With regards to big areole, like, I'm trying to recall, like, the biggest ones I've ever seen. I think in that case, it's really a case that I... Oh, God, it's not to do with that. I don't really care. Like, if they happen to have big ones and it's not too focused on, then I'm kind of indifferent to it. Same thing with this. I guess there is a point where it gets obscene. But I don't think I've come across an example of it where it is too much. I'm sure there's plenty of examples. I will admit, folks, I'm not the most experienced in this area. It's just an area of media with regards to hentai, manga, and anime that I'm very interested in. So this I'm just kind of indifferent to at the moment. Maybe in the future, if I find a lot of very unappealing examples of that, maybe we'll go down to here. But for the moment, I'm going to leave it there. Biting. Now, biting, I kind of find a little nice. Now, that's specifically when the girl bites. So when she like gives like a little bite on the neck, a little bite on the shoulder of, when she's biting the guy. That's kind of sexy, I think. God, this video. But yeah, so I do find that kind of sexy to look at. So I'll put it in the I'm curious section. Blackmail is going to go here. I do think there are some potentially very interesting stories to do with that, but just as a concept, it's not sexy to me really at all. You're taking advantage of someone, forcing them to do something they don't want to. And call me empathetic, but that isn't something that I necessarily find appealing. Blindfold? Again, I don't really care. God, I wonder how big this is, because this is already huge compared to some of these other ones. But a blindfold for me doesn't really make that much of a difference. If one of the characters is blindfolded, whatever. Bloomers? Again, I don't really get bloomers at all. If they happen to be wearing a bloomer, whatever. I don't really care. Blowjob. Now, blowjob is so commonplace. It's like almost impossible to find like hentai that doesn't involve a blowjob in some shape or form. At least when it comes to, the straight stuff and the yaoi stuff. Obviously, we have a different category for the lesbian stuff, but we'll get onto that when we get there. Blowjob, I'm not a big fan of it, but like, it's never going to put me off of something. So I guess it goes here. Body swap? Kind of interesting. I there's potential there. It wouldn't draw me in and of itself, but, I'm interested. Body writing. Now, I'm just going to be honest, folks. I really don't like body writing. There's a lot of it out there where, it's like writing on themselves that they're someone's property, or, something like that, or the number of times they've had sex or whatever. And I just don't like it at all. Then again, I'm the kind of person who I don't like tattoos myself, like the idea of getting a tattoo. So maybe that's a factor. If you were like more about like changing things in your body, maybe you'd love body writing. But for me, I don't like it. I'm just not into that. Bondage is probably going to come under here. Again, not something I'm super interested in, but I can get over it if the other elements are good enough. Booty. So having a big booty, I mean, again, I'm not super drawn to the booty, but if it's there, it's kind of nice usually, as long as it's not excessive. So I'll go with that. BSS. Now, I need to remind myself what that even means. Okay, so having looked it up, BSS. So as far as I can tell, people can correct me in the comments if you think I've, if I get something wrong. And actually, I would fully welcome it, because I really don't want to get things wrong here. But as far as I can tell, BSS is similar-ish to netorare, where you're interested in someone and then you see them with someone else. But the big difference between netorare and BSS is that with BSS, you're not actually going out with them. You're just interested in them. So BSS, I guess I'll put it under a little off-putting, because that obviously goes hand in hand with a lot of different emotions, and a lot of those emotions I'm not attracted to. But conceptually, there could be something there. But I'd have to get over this a little bit. Bukkake, I'm just gonna be completely honest. I really hate any time that ejaculation gets onto the girl, like her body or her hair or her face. We'll get onto the face in a bit, but I just don't find it sexy at all. I really hate it. Don't like that at all. Breast sucking. I mean, you're gonna see that in a lot of kind of lot of hentai, particularly yuri and straight stuff, obviously. Although you can do that in yaoi as well. It's not impossible. So in that case, I mean, in terms of, I guess I'd give it a, I'm curious. You know, it's somewhat appealing, but again, it's not going to sell me on something. Bun hair, I don't really care. If they happen to have bun hair, whatever. I don't really mind. Oh my god, this list. I might need to make this, hang on. I'm going to zoom out a bit more. Oh god, okay. Let's see how this goes. Bunny girl. I just don't understand the appeal of a bunny girl. I mean, I know there's like an association with Playboy and stuff, but like even with Playboy, it's like, what is the appeal of, you know, a girl who's got like the rabbit ears on and the outfit that has the little tail? I just don't really get it, but I also don't hate it. Busty. Now, with Busty, we're talking here, like, okay, I'm more into the breast than I am the butt. But when we say busty here, are we talking about those unbelievably massive breasts? Because if they are, I don't like that. If we're just going with the concept of busty, I guess I'd put it here. But I'm going to have to possibly adjust that later. If I don't have anything else that, like, you know, removes the ones where they're like obscenely big, I might need to drop this because that would probably encompass that. Catgirl, I'm gonna be honest, folks. Catgirls don't do it for me much. I have seen some, you know, sexy catgirls, but I've also seen so many that are really off-putting. When I think of catgirl now, actually, I tend to think of there's two different types I think of. One is the catgirl from Honey Pop, which I don't like the mannerism she has. I don't really like the look that she has. I'm just not a fan of her. Then you get the other catgirl where, if I recall correctly, Escaflowne has some pretty sexy catgirls in it. But just a catgirl in general, I'm not a fan. I just would rather them be like a normal person, to be completely honest. Okay, CG set. So, I don't know if this is much of a tag, but I do want to put this here because I really hate CG stuff in terms of like the hentai stuff. Like anytime you look at a CG hentai, we're talking specifically, well, I mean, I really hate the CG hentai anime stuff. Although that's even questionable whether it is actual anime in that case. But take an actual hentai manga or doujin that use CG. I just find that it ends up looking very kind of bland, and panels are pretty much non-existent. If they're there, they're very basic, and I hate that. Cheating. I'm gonna put cheating up there. I don't know why. I just find cheating quite sexy. So it's not that it sells me immediately, but cheating, I'm kind of like, yeah, I bet I'd like to check that out. Cheerleader, don't really care. I just don't really care. Chikan, I need to remind myself, what the hell is Chikan? Ah, yes, okay. So Chikan is the Japanese term for harassment with regards to, you know, groping and stuff, often associated with trains. I don't like it. I mean, I don't hate it as much as this stuff, so maybe I should put it here. But I don't find it sexy at all, that situation. I often feel bad about it. So, yeah, whatever. Christmas. Now, Christmas is an interesting one here because, you know, at first, a lot of people in the West might be looking at Christmas and going like, so what if it happens to be Christmas? But Christmas, particularly Christmas Eve in Japan, it's seen as like the most romantic time of year. And there's a lot of hentai stories about, you know, characters not having any significant others during that time. And then they meet someone and then they hook up. And you know what? It actually kind of works for a lot of those stories. Now, for the more Western concept of Christmas, it would probably be more of a don't really care either way. It happens to be set at Christmas, whatever. But if we're talking, the Japanese kind of like, oh, I really wish I had a girlfriend, at this time of year, because everyone's got a girlfriend, and then you come across someone, that's, pretty good, I think. Chubby, don't really care. Again, chubby is just a part of the character design, really. If they're chubby and they look great, who cares? Comedy. Now, comedy is a weird one here. I'm probably going to put it here because comedy, I don't necessarily go looking for comedy in hentai, and yet a lot of the most memorable ones I remember are the ones that are comedies. So that's kind of why I'm throwing that in there, because there's been a lot of very pleasant surprises to do with comedy and hentai. Obviously, the sex and kind of outlandish nature of a lot of the stories goes very well with comedy. So, I wouldn't necessarily go seeking it out, but, it's nice to see. And certainly, it's actually worked out well for me, very well in the past. Condom. Now, condom, okay. With regards to condom, I'm probably going to say this for one particular reason. Again, maybe I shouldn't be putting it there, but this goes hand in hand with removing a tag that I hate often. Not always, but often. So I do kind of like seeing that. But, again, it's not a case of me being completely sold on it. Cosplay, let me think, like them dressing up as like characters from a game and stuff, or that kind of stuff. It's a little sexy, but it's nothing to write home about. Cream pie. Okay. Now, I don't know how other people feel about it. I'm going to go here. And the best way I've found to explain this is that it's just kind of nature at work, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of things to do with these genres that are very, like, artificial. But at its most basic, like, cream pie is just the most basic act of nature. If an animal is going to have sex with another animal, they tend to do that just because, that's how you reproduce. And it's the same with humans, So, and also it draws away again from another tag that I don't like that I'll get onto in a little bit. So, yeah, obviously these sometimes go hand in hand because, you might start out with this and then you'll end up going to this. It's just kind of sexy, just because it's kind of very natural, very nature, Co-workers. I'm curious because co-workers is a good setting for, like characters hooking up. But in and of itself, it's not enough to sell me on a read. It's just kind of like, oh, nice, that kind of thing. Cross-dressing. Now, cross-dressing, there are occasions where it can actually be kind of cool. So I guess I'll put it here. Like, with cross-dressing, there are a few situations where, like, a guy dresses up as a girl and pretends to be a girl for a while to hang out with girls, and then one of the girls finds out that he's a guy, and they're like, oh, we should hook up. That kind of thing. There's also been a few occasions where it's a girl pretending to be a guy, and then, it's revealed that they are a girl. So that can be pretty good, but, again, it's not going to sell me on something. Crotch tattoo. I'm going to put it here. It's not as bad as body writing, but it's not much better. It's just not really that sexy to me, to be honest, folks. Just not that sexy. Cunnilingus. I mean, you're going to see it in a lot of things. I would probably put it on the same level as... where the hell did I put blowjob? Where is blowjob? Hold on. Have I just gone... There it is. I'll put it on this level. Because, you're going to see it in a lot of hentai, and it can sometimes be sexy, but also just a lot of time I'm just kind of waiting to get to the better stuff. So I don't really care. Same thing with curly hair. Oh my god, this is really filling out this section here. Dark skin. Gotta admit, I quite like that. Why? I'm not sure. But there's a lot of like dark skinned hentai girls that are like very sexy. And I think the fact that they're dark skinned makes them sexier. I don't know why. It's just something to do with the character design. Deep throat. I mean, you're gonna come across it a lot. It kind of goes hand in hand with blowjob. It's just, I feel kind of indifferent to it. Deity. I'm gonna put that here because deity usually has very specific types of stories. I don't really care for, if it's a god or a goddess. I would just kind of rather be a little bit more down to earth myself. So, yeah. Delinquent. I'm going to put this here under I'm curious. Oh my god, this list is so big already. So delinquent, I'm kind of thinking of more delinquent girls. They're quite sexy. I can imagine there's a lot of girls who think the same way about guys. Like if there's a delinquent guy, it's like, oh, they're quite sexy. But yeah, so like I'm taking mainly delinquent girls with this. I could probably find a couple of good stories to do with a delinquent guy, but I'm more drawn to delinquent girls myself, but that can work. Demon. I'm gonna be honest, folks. It's kind of a similar situation with deity. Demon often ends up being a little bit more extreme than deity, but just the concept of a demon, like I don't hate it, but when I see that, I'm a little like, I don't really care for that. Dilf. Now, a DILF, I guess I'll put here because, I'm going into these stories for the girls mainly. But, having a girl who's really attracted to a guy, that can be quite sexy. So, having a girl looking at someone as a DILF, that can be quite sexy in and of itself. Doctor. Now, a doctor here, I'm trying to recall, so in terms of hentai, like you can be male doctor or female doctor, but is there an implication that it would be a male? Because there's a lot of really gross male doctor hentai, and then there's some pretty sexy female doctor hentai. I mean, if we're just going off conceptually, because there's obviously a lot of other stuff going on with the male doctor ones, I guess I'll put it in the I'm curious section, because, removing some of the other stuff, it is, I'm curious, yeah. But, obviously there's a lot of other things that often go with it. Double penetration. Gonna admit, a little off-putting. Actually, you know what? I'm putting it down here, because double penetration implies multiple partners, multiple male partners, and I'm not super gung-ho about that, so I'm going to put that down here. Elf. Elf is pretty good. I'm going to put down here curious. I'm not sold on an elf in and of itself, but, Exhibitionism. Now, exhibitionism, I'm going to put down at the... Actually, I'm going to kind of put it down here, to be honest, because exhibitionism, I know it's like, oh, we're out, I'm showing off my body to you outside or whatever, but exhibitionism, somewhere that we shouldn't be naked together. And I don't really like that at all. I just don't find it sexy. God, I feel like I'm being repetitive with some of these answers, but the thing is, exhibitionism, it's just like, I guess I'm just thinking about whether they'll be caught most of the time. And most of the time they don't get caught, but sometimes they do. I'm also just thinking about I guess I'm just too empathetic in many ways, because I'm also thinking about what it would be like if someone else walked in, and I was just thinking about the person who walked in, that kind of stuff. I don't know. Exhibitionism, I just don't care for it. Eye penetration. Gonna put that in instant turn off. I had to experience that recently when I reviewed Dead Days, the visual novel. There was an eye penetration scene, and I really did not like it. Of course, it probably didn't help. They were describing vividly the texture. I could see the blood coming out. And also there was a bit where she pointed out that, she was like, oh, I wonder, can I deep throat this penis with my eye socket? And she was like, oh, it's touching my brain. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to puke. So, don't care for that. Eyebrows, I'm going to say don't really care either way, because I don't really, just what, that they're thick eyebrows or something? I don't care. Eye patch, gonna put that there. If the character design's good enough, then I don't really care about the eye patch. A face mask, now you see this a lot. It's like the mask that people had to wear during COVID, but Japan often, people wear them, if someone's got a cold or something, so that they don't spread it to other people. And it's a case of I don't care either way, because I don't really find... I mean, I guess what some people might find sexy about that is having to, like, lift up the face mask. But I just... It doesn't do anything for me. Face sitting. Same way. Don't really care either way. Fangs. I mean, I presume they're not talking about, like, the little fang that tsundere usually have. I'm going to assume that we're talking about full-on fangs. And if that's the case, it's a little off-putting. Facial. This one I hate. I really hate facials. It's just, I really hate it. I would prefer, like either this or that. It just, I don't know. I just don't see it as sexy. Just a girl with a bunch of semen on her face. Or a guy with a bunch of semen on his face as well. I just don't find it sexy at all. I really hate it. I just think about, how hot it would be, how sticky it would be, how much you'd have to wash it off. I just hate it. I don't like it. Fantasy. I'm going to be completely honest, folks. I find fantasy a little off-putting in hentai, just because, I don't know, like with regards to, I mean, I guess it's a little hypocritical because I'm talking about elf up here as being I'm curious, but like fantasy, I'm kind of thinking of a fantasy world, and in a lot of those situations, they just come off as being very cliche. Not usually a fan. Femboy. A feminine boy. I'm trying to remember, well, I guess just the concept of a feminine boy. I'm not opposed to it. But, it's not something that really makes much of a difference to me. Femdom. Now, I do like seeing the female be the dominant partner. I don't know if femdom implies a lot of other kind of more distasteful stuff. But just going with the concept of the female being the dominant one, I kind of like it. Now, if we start moving on to like some of the more extreme things she could do, then obviously that might change. But, just the concept of it. Filming. Now, filming is a funny one, because often filming, I think, comes under the whole blackmail kind of tag. And in those situations, I don't like it. But just the concept of filming, where like the girl is totally into it, I find that kind of sexy. Fingering, indifferent to it. You're gonna find that in so much hentai. First time. Now, with this, I just want to check here actually. With regards to, so I guess we might be going under first time with regards to both males and females. And in, like, I don't really like seeing it much with the females. The males, it can be kind of sexy. So I guess in the end, I'll put it under here as a compromise. If it's like the female variant, it would be under here. If it was the male variant, it would be up here. Foot job. I'm going to put under here because, again, I just don't get a foot job. I don't get a foot job. Out of context. I don't understand it, really. Foreigner, I don't really care. Usually, foreigners, you're going to have, like, your American or Russian girls who are, like, blonde and very busty and stuff. But just the concept of foreigner doesn't do anything for me. Fishnets. Again, a lot of people find fishnets sexy, and I just don't get it myself. But I don't really care. Fox Girl, I'm going to put a little off-putting. Maybe I should put it under with Cat Girl, actually, because Fox Girl really have to work hard to get me to be interested in it. So yeah, that's actually the right one. Futanari. Now, Futanari, I'm going to admit that I haven't really watched or read much Futanari. I would just kind of rather it be the guy. So I guess I'll put it here. Gender bending. Now, gender bending is where, like, you turn from one gender to another. You know, usually not, like, as part of an operation or anything, but just literally, like, something happens. Think Ranma Half, you know, where he gets covered in water of a certain temperature and he turns into a girl, and then the girl, she gets covered in water of a certain temperature and she turns into a guy. That kind of thing. Maybe it's kind of in between these two for me. I'm going to put it, just because there's so much up here already, I'm going to put it here. Now, gender bending of all this stuff here is probably the one that would be the closest to I don't really care. Like, it's the least offensive to me down here. But it's, you know, ultimately, I'm not really that enthused about it. Glasses, don't really care. Some people really love, you know, characters having glasses. For me, I'm just indifferent to it. If they have glasses, whatever. Golden Shower, I'm gonna put it down here just because I don't like urine at all really being involved. So it's very off-putting. So I guess I'll put it here. It's not as worse as some of this stuff. I know some people are probably looking at this and going like, come on, dude, that's not too bad. I honestly hate facials. So Golden Shower, it has the potential. It's the least offensive of these instant turnoffs, but it is still an instant turnoff. Group is a bit too much, I think. There can be sexy group sex, but often it just is very complex. There's a lot going on. There's so many characters that you don't really get much time with each one. So it's a little off-putting. But you know, if it's done well, I could be into it. Freckles? You know what? I'll say Freckles. It's kind of cute. It's maybe of some of these, it'd be like really close to don't really care either way, but Freckles can be kind of cute. I kind of like Freckles. Gyaru? I'm going to be completely honest, folks. I'm kind of really into the Gyarus. And there's a reason for that. The main thing I like about Gyarus within like the context of hentai is that they're usually sexually experienced, they're sexually assertive, and usually sexually dominant. And I just really like that. I really like that. So I'm going to put that there. You know, their visual appearance can also be quite appealing. You know, you got the dark skin often, all that kind of stuff. But mainly it's just because the Gyarus, I kind of associate them with, you know, being like sexually assertive. And that's something I quite like. Usually they're the ones, you know, encouraging the guy to like sleep with them. So I quite like that. Down here, hairy armpit. I'm going to say it's a little off-putting. It's a little different to armpit fetish, but like I just don't see it as being that sexy, seeing a hairy armpit. Hand job. I mean, I'm going to be honest, folks. Again, I don't really get hand jobs at all. I got to stop saying that. I really got to stop saying that. What I mean is I don't understand hand jobs. Like, why seeing that is sexy. Again, I don't hate it, but I'm kind of waiting to get to the good bits. You know, that's kind of my attitude with it. It's kind of just a build-up. Harem. Now, harem is probably going to be put here, simply because it's very hard to do a good harem. Because again, you're juggling a lot of characters, and there's also the fact that a lot of the time the way they're written is so strange in terms of how they accept that each other are with a guy. And I don't know, but so the concept of harem, I don't really care, but it's tough to execute well, is what I'll say. Headphones, don't really care if they're wearing headphones, whatever. Heart pupils, Now, I gotta admit, folks, heart pupils, I kind of find cute, you know? When the girl's got, like, heart pupils in her eyes, I should say, to do with, you know, like, they're looking at you and they're like, oh, they're so, like, enthused that their eyes literally have hearts for pupils. That is pretty sexy. It's not anything crazy. I do like it, though. Historical. Historical's a tough one. Like, I'd probably put it under here because with historical, it's usually a bit, like, there's a lot that they have to kind of set up. With that, it takes a while. There can be some good stories, but it's just a bit much with regards to hentai, in my personal opinion. Horns. I guess that'll go with the demons. Or obviously you can have horns, you know, and not be demons and stuff, but horns, not really a sexy attribute to me. More than anything else, it's actually kind of off-putting. Horror. I'm a big horror fan. I love horror in general. Don't really want it in my hentai, though. I think there's potential there, so I'll put it here that it's a little off-putting. But I don't really go to the hentai to have a horror experience, myself at least. So that's part of what I'm going to do. Hot spring, kind of similar to the... where did I put it? The bathhouse kind of thing. Like, I guess the bathhouse is when you're indoors and the hot spring is when you're outdoors. It's kind of the same for me. I kind of consider them the same thing. Housewife. Gonna be honest, folks. I find housewives really sexy in a lot of manga. Obviously, there's a lot of not sexy stories to do with housewives, but if I see housewife, I'm kind of a lot more interested. Just because a lot of the stories that I tend to gravitate towards involve housewife figures. We'll get onto a different onto a tag that's kind of related to that in a moment. But housewives, pretty sexy. Cheating housewives, very sexy. Huge boobs. Okay, this is the one I was talking about. So busty, I'm good with. Huge boobs, I'm gonna say gonna have to work very hard to interest me because some people just there is a point, folks, where boobs are unappealing. I've seen my fair share of like hentai characters with ginormous boobs, like this big, and it's like, how is that sexy? That's too much. I'd like just like kind of normal-ish big boobs myself. You know, that's kind of what I'm thinking of when I'm putting busty up here. But if they're like massive, like oversized, quite off-putting to me, to be honest. Idol. Now, with regard to idols, I would probably put it here because I'm not a fan generally of the idol character designs with regards to hentai. There can potentially be, you know, decent stories to do with idols in hentai, but it's just because of how the characters usually look, I'm putting it kind of in the little off-putting. Impregnation. Now, impregnation, oh my god, there's so much associated with this one word with regards to hentai. You know, you can have sweet, wholesome stories of someone getting impregnated, or it can be like some of the most sick, disgusting stuff you've ever seen. The mere concept of impregnation, I would probably put here, just because, again, that kind of fits with the whole natural, like, that's the most basic purpose of sex. It's to get impregnated, to continue your lineage, whether you be a guy or a girl. So, you know, just the mere concept of it, I like it. Obviously, there's a lot of, you know, combine this with so many of these other tags, and I'm like, oh my god, I hate it. But, you know, just the mere concept I like. Incest. Now, I'm going to put this... I'll put this here. There's some forms that I'm more tolerant of. But obviously, when we're talking about incest here, we're usually thinking of like brother, sister, son, mother, father, daughter, that kind of stuff. And I really hate those stuff. I just think it's really gross. There's a story that I'll have to share one time to do with that, actually. But anyway, hate it. Inflation, Luckily, I don't think I've ever really experienced inflation, but the concept of it is just completely off-putting to me. Inseki. I have to remind myself what Inseki is. Give me a moment, folks. Ah, okay. So, Inseki is, okay, so Inseki basically is, it's like the same kind of story as an incest, but the characters aren't actually related. So it's like, for instance, might be a stepbrother and a stepsister, or a stepson and a stepmom. And in those cases, I kind of like it, actually. I think it's quite sexy, all right. Now, there's a lot of real bad storytelling you can do with this. But just the concept of it, no one's related to each other, and it's still a little taboo. So, I kind of like that. Inverted nipples. I don't really get it at all. It's kind of irrelevant to me. I didn't even know inverted nipples was a thing for a long time. And I certainly don't have an opinion really on whether they're sexy or not. They're just kind of there. Isekai, I'm going to put this here because isekai, I don't like isekai in general with regards to regular anime and manga. In regards to hentai, like, I think it's a little more... I'm not as angry about it with regards to hentai, like, in general. But I still don't like it, really. So that's why I'm putting it there. Kemo no Mimi. Now, if I recall correctly with Kemo no Mimi, it's like characters who have, like, anthropological... Is that the word? Basically, they've got aspects to them that are like an animal, I think. Maybe a tail or an ear. Let me just double check that I'm correct on that. Yeah, so it's like human characters that have, animal-like features. Usually it's the ears. I'm going to put that down here. Just not super sexy to me. Kimono? I'm indifferent to a kimono. I get it. There's a fetish some people have for kimonos and stuff. Not super big on that myself. Kudere. Now, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure kudere means like that the character's emotionless. Usually the girl. I'm going to double check that. Yeah, so it's basically a character who appears to be emotionless. Usually turns out they're kind of sweet, once you get to know them. But they start out as being like very kind of monotone, dare I say dull. And while in general, in real life, I would not like that at all, the way that it's been done in a lot of Japanese media, often kuderis are actually some of the more interesting characters. So I'm actually going to put it in I'm curious. I've just had good experience with them. Lactation, I don't like lactation. That's just very off-putting to me. So I'm just going to put that there. Leg lock. Now, leg lock has implications. So, for anyone who isn't familiar with leg lock, that's when the woman wraps her legs, or, I mean, I guess you could also do it if you're a guy. I've never seen a guy example, but theoretically it can be done. When the woman wraps her legs around the guy, preventing them from, like, pulling back. And that, in real life, that is, not a cool thing to do at all, unless the guy is into it as well. In hentai, though, little sexy. Means the woman is really into it. So, and that I kind of like that. Light hair, just don't really care. Light hair, I'm indifferent to. I just don't really care about that. Lingerie, now, why did I say it like that? With regards to lingerie, they're pretty sexy. Now I'd rather they were, I'd rather they were out of the lingerie. But it can be a very sexy start. So I'll put that there. Lolicon, I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Get out of here. I don't even want to explain it. If you know what lolicons are, you know what I'm talking about. Lotion play, I find that very off-putting. I just don't like slimy texture. And so I kind of think of it as if it was myself, I guess. I just don't like lotion play. Love Hotel, I mean, I'm kind of... just the concept of them going to a love hotel, I'm kind of indifferent to it. Now, obviously, they go to... I guess I should also explain, actually, because love hotel is quite a Japanese concept, isn't it? So a love hotel is basically a hotel that's designed so that, you know, you bring your partners there and you can have sex at the love hotel. And it appears in a lot of Japanese media. Obviously, with regards to hentai, because hentai is so sexual in the first place, obviously love hotels gonna be pretty prominent. I'm kind of indifferent to it. I can think of a few examples where they go to a love hotel and it's just like, whatever. But then there are some sexy love hotel scenes. Just the concept of going to a love hotel, I don't really care. Love potion, I kind of think of that bit in that episode of Rick and Morty from the first season, where Morty wants to use a love potion and Rick, after a while, tears him down by explaining how love potion is essentially another form of this word down here, the R word. And I would agree with that. Now, you have potential for it to be done comedically and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'll put it here. I don't really like the concept of a love potion in general, but I've seen enough good uses of it for comedy that I won't instantly be turned off by it. Magical Girl. Like, Magical Girl series I can quite like. In fact, my favorite anime of all time is a Magical Girl series, Puella Magi Mathematica. And so I do like a lot of Magical Girl anime series. Magical Girl hentai? Not generally a big fan of it. I guess I'll put it under here. I haven't seen enough of it to really have much of an opinion on it, but usually, again, there's a lot of things you associate with Magical Girl. And even just with the core concept of Magical Girl, usually there's a bunch of setup. And the setup isn't usually that sexy. It's not really foreplay. So I'll just put it here. It's a little off-putting. Maid, we're talking like the French maid outfit. Very popular in Japanese media in general. And the maid, I'm going to say I don't really care. There's some sexy maids out there, but also I don't like the concept of the maid having to do it just, you know, because it's part of her job. So that's why I'm going to put don't really care either way. Masturbation. Now, masturbation, I don't really find sexy in and of itself. So I guess I'll put that here. Now, what I will say is one character masturbating and then having the other character walk in on them, and that leads to something, that's kind of sexy. But in just the core principle of masturbation, I don't really care either way. If the guy's doing it or the girl's doing it, don't really care. The mating press. Now, I think from what I recall correctly, that's where it's the guy pressing really hard against her as he, you know, finishes, which is why it's called the mating press. I'm probably going to put it in this under here just because it's a similar thing with the leg lock. In fact, they often go together because obviously she locks him in place and then he finishes by doing that. Can be, you know, good. Obviously, there could be some really disgusting versions of this, but whatever. Just the core concept's kind of sexy. Miko. Now, a Miko, just to explain to people, is a Japanese shrine maiden. Basically, these girls who assist in the at the like shrines, perform some of the rituals, etc., etc. Some people compare them to nuns in the West, and that really isn't the best comparison. We'll get onto that a bit, I guess, when we get to nuns. But like, Mikos aren't locked in for life like nuns. Like, if they want to stop being a Miko, they can stop being a Miko, and there's like no problems with it. There's not really an expectation that they'll be a Miko for the rest of their life. There's that, and then often they are actually quite young, at least from what I'm aware of, in contrast to nuns, which again, we'll talk about nuns when we get to that. So Miko, I'm not super gung-ho about them, just because they're usually quite young. I'm going to put Miko there. MILF. I'm going to be putting MILF here. So MILF, I love MILFs. Obviously, that's why it goes so well with Housewife. And, you know, if you have Gyaru MILF, whoo, Gyaru MILF Housewife, whoo. But MILF, I just love the aesthetic of it. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of MILF stuff out there where it's the mom and the son, like actually blood related. Hate that. But there's a lot of sexy like MILF ones where it's like the stepmom and the stepson. That's pretty sexy, I think. And the whole housewife stuff, very sexy. Mind break. Now, mind break. Oh god, how do I even describe this? So mind break, from what I'm aware, it's like when you do something so that one of the partner's mind snaps. And usually I think it's associated with, at that point, causing a severe personality change. Now, that could be as simple as them not liking it at first and then loving it, or it can literally change their whole personality. And, like, I'm not super enthused about it. Like, there are some alright ones. If it's well written, it can actually be kind of like a cool, kind of like a revenge plot kind of scheme. But I'm gonna probably say it definitely like raises my eyebrow. Like, when I see that, I'm like, do I? So yeah, that's a little off-putting. Mind control, I'm definitely going to have to put it in here. Mind control obviously quite overlaps a bit here in that, you know, the willingness of the partner is compromised. Now, you can have potentially very interesting mind control stories, but again, you'd have to like really work hard to get me to be interested in that. Monster Girl, I'm going to put this here just because often with these Monster Girls, they have really weird character designs. Not really into it myself. Mosaics. Now, I was debating whether or not I should keep mosaics in here. I'm just indifferent to it. A lot of hentai is censored, and, you know, if it's censored, whatever, you know, like, if it's like mosaic to whatever, I can have a pretty good idea what's under that mosaic, generally. Muscles. So I do like seeing toned characters, whether they be the female or the male. With regards to the female, that's for my satisfaction. For the male, usually it's just because I feel better for the female that the male's muscular. Usually also eliminates a bunch of other tags as well. I'd mainly be interested in the muscly females myself. And when I'm talking muscles here, I guess I'm not talking about like super duper muscular, although I'm not necessarily opposed to that either. I'm talking more just like, you know, got a nice toned body, a six pack, you know, the muscles are defined, that kind of stuff. Nettoare. Now, nettoare, oh god, I'm actually going to need to look up the definition of some of these. So we got what looks like 3 different versions of this here. Okay, so I tried looking up the definition of these. So if I've made any mistakes, folks, you can let me know. So nettoare is where the guy is. So often, sorry, I shouldn't say just guy because it could also be girl. But let's just say, for the sake of this example I'm going to give, we're talking we have a guy, a girl, and another guy. And the guy and girl are together. And then the other guy comes in, takes the girl, basically forces the other guy to be aware of it or to experience it. He has an emotional breakdown usually because of it, that kind of stuff. It's not instant turn off to me, but you have to do that very well. Now, nettoraze is kind of interesting in that it's where the partner who's being cheated on is aware of it, but also wants it. Like, so like, think of maybe like, he's like, oh, I want you, my wife, to sleep with this other guy. I'm going to be hiding in the closet, like jacking off in the closet while you have sex on the bed in front of me. Obviously, that doesn't have the same issues with nettoare because the guy isn't... He's kind of like a bit unhinged already, to be honest. I'm not indifferent to it, so I guess I'll put it here. If they do the story well enough, I can get behind that, but they have to work at it a bit. Nettori. Now, Nettori, I think, is where we're following the guy who... So Nettorare, from what I'm aware, again, I just looked up the definition there, so if I've any mistakes here, folks, you can let me know. Nettorare is where we're following the guy who is, you know, being cheated on. Whereas Nettori, I think, is we're following the guy who does the cheating. As a concept, I'd put it... I guess I'll put it here because it's hard for me to get away from... There's just these particular types of characters in Notori and Netorare, but like Notori, you're spending even more time with them. I'm thinking of this recent manga I read, and maybe it's a bad example, but like I'm just thinking of this recent manga I read where it was like this. I really hated it. I really hated it. So it's not at this level. There's potential storytelling here, but like you're gonna have to do something very good in order to get me interested in one of these. Ninja. So ninja, I guess it's kind of like the alien situation here, and that if it just happens to be a ninja, whatever, don't really care. Nipple penetration, that's going to instant turn off. I hate that idea. The idea of having to stretch it open for one. Ugh. Nun. So, as I said before, I had a bit to say with nun here. So, a lot of nuns in hentai are quite sexy. Having grown up in a Catholic country, nuns in real life don't tend to be sexy, folks. I'm sorry, but like, you know, a lot of them are just regular women wanting to do their job for God. They aren't like these supermodels that they often are made out to be in hentai. Nuns, I guess I'll just put it here because it's a little off-putting, but you know, there's some good stuff. There's some, like for instance, this isn't the hentai now, but there's a good romance manga that I read, 1 Pound Gospel. And, you know, the love interest in that is a nun. And it's just quite a funny, enjoyable read, and I liked it. But that wasn't so much to do with the nun. It was more to do with the actual story and style. So, the nun, a little bit off-putting, but I can get over that. It's just, I guess I have too much real experience. Nurse. I'm going to probably put nurse under the I'm curious section, just because, again, kind of sexy when, you know, the nurse is like taking care of you and she really is interested in you. Obviously, you have the potential for it to go in real bad directions, just like with the doctor. But the nurse, you know, just as a concept, you know, I kind of like it. Office lady. Now, office lady, I think, would also go under the I'm curious section. That kind of links a bit with the co-workers thing. I think the big difference is the office lady is usually in a higher position of authority, whereas co-workers is kind of more, they're on the same level. Office lady can be quite sexy. Can be, being an operative word. Ojo-sama. Now, I'm going to double check this here, but Ojo-sama, I think, is where they are treating you like you're royalty or something, or a noble or something like that. I'm going to double check that. Oh no, I was wrong actually. So apparently, from what I read, Ojo-sama is basically like a girl who is rich and comes from like a prestigious household. In those cases, I guess I kind of like it. It's just in the sense that usually it's them getting a bit wild. Oni, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really want to see Oni in my stories. I guess if they do it, if they do it well enough, I could potentially be. It's kind of similar with Monster Girl. If they do it well enough, I could be, you know, convinced. But it's I'm just not a big fan of them in general. Orgasm denial. I guess it kind of depends. In a lot of ways, they use this little string, and I really hate that concept. So I'm gonna put that here under a little off-putting. Orgy. Orgy is messy. Orgy's kind of just like group sex, to be honest. So I'm gonna kind of put it here. It's just messy. There's a lot of people involved. It's hard to keep track. Maybe orgy is more of a one gender, one person of one gender, and then like the rest of them are different gender, or maybe it's like they're all same gender, or I don't know. But like orgy is just a bit messy. This I have to remind myself what the hell this is. Yes, okay. So this basically means childhood sweetheart, and I'm probably going to put it here. I know there's a lot of people who don't like the childhood sweetheart, who think it's like overdone. But there's some very cute stories to do with them, so I kind of like that. Outdoors. Outdoors is basically the same as, where is it now? Exhibitionism. I guess exhibitionism, you can have it in like a public building. Whereas outdoors is specifically like, you know, you're out in a garden or you're out in a park or, you know, that kind of thing. Many of the same issues I have with exhibitionism. Ovi bangs. I'm going to be honest, folks. I find that kind of character design really, really sexy. Now, it's not enough. It's not strong enough as these three in order to sell me completely, but I'm going to put under here just because over eye bangs are really sexy. I just love a lot of character designs like that, where one of their bangs is just going over, saw some interesting tags there, going over their eye. I don't know why, I just find that really sexy. I actually wonder, is it to do with the fact that I had a crush on, when I was a kid, I had a crush on, if you've seen Ed, Edd and Eddy, do you remember the Kanka sisters? Do you remember the blue-haired one? I had a crush on her, and I think she had, like a bang that went over one of her eyes, so I think that might be part of it. Paizuri is to do with, you know, breast, you know, sex, you know, like a breast job, essentially. I'm just going to put this here because, again, it doesn't really do much for me. Also, they tend to take a little while, these ones. So, I'm not super sold on them. Pantyhose, I don't really care. Like, I don't really get the appeal of, like, fishnets or pantyhoses. Pantyhoses, actually, maybe I feel a little bad for them. I still won't move from here, but I'm like, they often rip them. I kind of think to myself, oh, now you gotta buy a new one. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Pegging. So, obviously, this is often associated with the guy. Gonna put that there. Petite. I'm gonna put here because I like, you know, the women looking more voluptuous. But, you know, you can have sexy petite characters. You just gotta work quite hard at some of the other aspects with them. Piercing. Now, piercing, I think, is where they have, like, a piercing on their tongue or a piercing on their genital or something like that. And it's like, to me, I'm kind of indifferent about it. I guess, I don't know why I'm more okay with piercing than with tattoos. It doesn't really do much for me, piercing, but, you know, I'm not opposed to it. Ponytail. I'm going to put here just because ponytail, I don't know, there's just this kind of, it makes me think of younger characters, and I don't want that. Like, you never really see a MILF with a ponytail, do you? Maybe on occasion, but like, Pool, I'm going to say it's a little off-putting. It's kind of a similar situation with the exhibitionism, except Pool, you could have like a private pool. It's a little messy, particularly in terms of, like, for instance, the amount of detail you have to do in the manga to show that there's water involved and all that kind of stuff. Little messy, but, you know, whatever. Pregnant, that's an instant turn off. Pubic hair, as long as they don't focus on it too much, I don't really care. Now, I need to remind myself what that is. Okay, so Chipao, I think that's how you pronounce it, is the Chinese dress that, you know, you see often. It's very, like, slim. It's got, like, the little opening at the side so you can see some of the hip and leg. It is pretty sexy. I don't know if it would make me want to read something because of it. But I like the look, so you know what? Why not? I'll put it there. How much do we have? Okay, we're getting there, folks. We're getting there. I don't know how long I've been recording already. Ugh. I don't even want to say this word. I'm sorry, folks. It's the R word. I don't like it. Rim job. I'm gonna put this here. Again, I don't get the idea of what is sexy about a rim job. If I see rim job included, it's gonna be quite off-putting to me. It's gonna have to work very hard. Robot. I'm gonna put this here because I don't know why. Just the fact that they're a robot makes them less sexy to me. I don't know why. If I see robot, it's gonna be quite off-putting to me. Like, more so than up here. This... scat. I hate scat. I read a manga. It wasn't a hentai manga. I think it was Velvetina Mandela, where you had to... where there was a lot of scat stuff involved, and I really don't like that. Schoolgirl outfit. Now, the schoolgirl outfit isn't an immediate turn-off. Because you can have, like, for instance, the MILF going back and getting their old schoolgirl outfits, and that is pretty sexy when it happens. And they're like, does this still fit me? You know? And usually it's very tight on them. That's quite sexy. But also there's other implications, and so I'm going to leave it there. A scientist. Now, scientist, usually not very sexy to me. I guess I'll put it here. There's usually a lot going on with that, but just the mere concept of it being a scientist, not too much for me. Sci-fi. I'm going to put this alongside scientist. Sci-fi, usually there's a lot that has to be established with sci-fi. Story usually gets pretty crazy. Not super fond of it in the hentai, but, you know, I'm not opposed to it either. Shark teeth. Now, shark teeth, that's where, you know, we've seen all those kind of characters in anime where they've got the teeth that are like the V going along. Usually indicates a particularly like predatory character. Predatory meaning, you know, various multiple things in these situations. I'm going to be honest, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, if it's there in the manga, it's not going to make much of a difference to me. Like, if they happen to have that, it just doesn't do much for me. Like, it doesn't upset me. It doesn't really annoy me. I don't really want it to be there, but I'm kind of indifferent to it overall. Now, I need to remember what Shimapan is. Okay. Shimapan. So, apparently, that is striped panties. And I was just looking there, and it was talking about the fact that with these striped panties, that apparently makes the hips look bigger. And that can be quite sexy, actually. Actually, I can think of a few examples, actually, where they're just wearing the panty on, and it is very sexy, actually. So, you know what? I'll put it under here. I'm curious. I feel like that's an interesting tag. Short hair. Now, short hair, I'm mostly indifferent on. I'm more of a long hair person myself. Short hair, I'm not off-put by it, though. So, I'll accept that. Okay, again, I had to remind myself with short stack. A short stack apparently means that they're quite short, but they're stacked. You know, they've got a bust, but, you know, height-wise, they're quite short. I'm going to admit that I'm kind of indifferent to that. It doesn't make much of a difference to me. Shotokan, that's going to go right beside here. You see it a lot with MILF hentai in particular, and it's just so off-putting. 69, I'm going to put here. It can be quite sexy, but again, I would never be attracted to the manga because of that. I really don't want to see smegma in my hentai. It's just, I don't want to see it. Smell fetish, I'm actually going to say, folks, smell fetish? I guess I'll put it here because smell fetish can mean a lot of different things. But I do like it when the female is obsessed with the smell of the guy. I think that's pretty sexy myself. So I'm going to put it there. Snuff. Now, snuff, I don't like one of the characters dying as part of the story. It just isn't sexy to me at all. I don't like it. Socks. Now, I presume when they're talking about socks here, they're talking about the socks, like them still wearing socks, and they've taken everything else off. I'm going to put this here because I usually don't care that much. I'm only kind of thinking to myself, come on, take off the socks. They're the last thing to go off. But, you know, I'm not too bothered by them. It just, I would rather them be completely naked in that situation. Spanking. Now, spanking can be pretty sexy. For me, it's always the sexiest when the girl is, like, demanding it. Go ahead and spank me. You know, that kind of thing. If the guy does it without, you know, talking to the girl about it, it's not, like, it would be more down here, maybe even, like, kind of veering towards here. But in general, the concept of spanking, pretty sexy. Spats just fits into, like, this don't carry it away thing. It's like, it's the same with pantyhose, it's the same with kimono and most of these other outfits. Is like, if they happen to be wearing spats, whatever. But, like, I don't really care. I'm here for other stuff. A spirit. Now, a spirit, I'm going to put in the a little off-putting. And the reason for that is, with a spirit, it's like, there's some weirdness that can go on with it, but at its core, it just isn't as attractive to me as if they were like a real person. So I if I saw that, I would be a little off-put by it. Sportswear. Now, I will say, would it actually sell me a bit? I'm going to put it here because that outfit where you have like the small top on at the top, you got the shorts on, and then like the stomach all like out there, pretty sexy. So I'm going to put it there under I'm curious. Squirting. So obviously that's when the girl squirts. It means she's having a good time. Usually it squirts over the man's face, which I'm not usually a fan of. But luckily it isn't as sticky as, you know, if it was semen or something. So just because of how the girl usually acts leading up to it as well, I'm going to put squirting here. Stockings. Stockings, again, is just like whatever. If stockings are there, that's fine. It doesn't do much for me. Succubus. Now, succubus is a specific type of demon. And so I put demon, I think it was in here somewhere. Where did I put demon? I didn't put it all the way down here, did I? Demon, demon, demon. Did I put demon under a little off-putting? Oh, I did. Okay. Succubus, since they're more sexually oriented demons, I'm going to put them here. Swallowing. So swallowing is another tough one in the sense that sometimes the girls are really into it. And when they're into it, that's pretty hot. But there's also a lot of times where the guy grabs onto the girl's head and makes them swallow. And that's not sexy. So I'm going to put it here just as a compromise. Basically, one version of it is up here and one version of it is down here. The swimsuit. Now, the swimsuit, I'm going to admit, folks, kind of sexy. Kind of like the swimsuit. Very tight-fitting. You just know that there's like only a small layer that's separating, you know, you from being completely naked. Pretty sexy. Quite like it. Swinging. Now, swinging is obviously when, you know, you share your partners and stuff. I would say it's makes me curious. But I wouldn't be super gung-ho for it. But, you know, there could be some good stuff. A tall girl. Kind of indifferent to it, to be honest. You know, if she's tall, that's fine. As long as, you know, it's not like crazy tall. Tan lines. I'm going to say it's a little sexy. I kind of like tan lines. Don't really know why. Tattoo. Tattoo is probably... I don't think tattoo's as bad as the crotch tattoo. But it's... Again, I'm not a big fan of just characters having tattoos all over them. Teacher. Now, if we're talking the female teachers... Female teachers is, like, high up there. I really like, you know, female teachers. Thing is, teacher here is including male teachers as well, right? And male teachers, they can be okay, but, like, you know, there's a lot of times where they're quite abusive. So I don't like that. So I'm actually going to, even though the female variant specifically would be up here, because of all the other things that could happen, I'm going to put it down here. It is an instant sell because I need to look into it. Tentacles. Tentacles... I'm going to put here. Again, I haven't experienced tentacles too much, but again, I just kind of don't get why it's sexy. Thick. Now, I think thick I took out here because of the fact that we have the big butt somewhere here. And because of that, I'm probably going to put it here. I don't know if thick and booty, if there's any like specific nuances between them. If there is, let me know about it. A thigh job. I'm going to say... Folks, it's not very sexy to me at all. Like, rubbing the thighs is like you're so close to actually just having regular sex. And you're just too far away to actually do it. Tomboy. Now, tomboy usually has a very specific look about them. And I'm more into like the kind of milfy looking ones. But I've seen a lot of very cute tomboys in my time, so I'll put that there. Toys, I'm kind of indifferent with. Again, it's usually a case of me wanting them to get to the sex faster than with the toys. But, you know, what can you do? Tsundere. I'm going to put tsundere... Let's put it... I'll put it here. I'm kind of indifferent to a tsundere, to be honest. Usually doesn't even last that long within a hentai, because usually they've got to get together pretty quickly. Twin tails. Now, twin tails... for me is worse than the ponytail. So the ponytail was in a little off-putting, wasn't it? Or is it down here? Oh, it's down here. Okay, I'm going to put it here. It's not an instant turn-off, but it's too juvenile looking for me to like it. Now, I don't know why I have two of these here. So I'm just going to leave one of these here. Obviously, very controversial tag. I don't want to write it off completely. So I'm going to put it here. Now, obviously, there's a lot of association with a lot of other things they can do, but like with regards to, just the concept of it, we're gonna put it here. I usually feel a little bad for the girl in these kind of situations. Now, we got this pleasant one. Urethra insertion. Gonna admit, folks, it's an instant turnoff. I think of, something going in there, and I really don't like it. It's sounding. That's what it is. Now, I've heard of a few more extreme examples where they like actually put something in there properly. Like they inject something in there. I really hate that. Vanilla. Now, vanilla, I was actually really shocked to see, like, do you remember I was talking about that thread on Mal? There was so many people so angry about vanilla. And I was thinking to myself, come on, everyone, I kind of like vanilla. It's nice. There are often nice romance, some emotional stuff that happens. Often the emotional stuff kind of falls flat, but at least they're trying. I kind of like vanilla. I wouldn't mind seeing more of it. Very long hair. Now, I'm going to put that under the I'm curious because I like very long hair. Vomit, not sexy. Vor, not sexy. Voyeurism, I'm going to put here because voyeurism sometimes it leads to interesting stuff. I didn't even know this was a category. VTuber. Like, I didn't realize that we were at the point yet where that's actually included as part of the hentai tags. I haven't seen any VTuber stuff. I don't really know how it works. I guess I'll put it here for the moment just because I don't really have an opinion on it. Waitress. Waitress can be quite sexy. But she's not as sexy as some of the other ones. I guess she'd be on the same level as like an office lady or something. So I'll put that down there. Whew, we're almost there. Witch. Now, a witch I'm going to probably put here just because it's a little out there, for witches to be doing all this stuff. But some of them can be quite sexy and there can be some good stories. But, again, you're going to have to do a bit more to get me interested in wrestling. Wrestling is very dramatic. Often associated, of course, with very fit women because of the fact that if they're doing the wrestling, they have to be very fit. I'm going to put this here under I'm curious. Oh boy, okay. 4 more to go. X-ray. So X-ray, I'm leaning towards either here or here. So X-ray, does it add much to the experience? Not a ton, I will say. But I will say that I do like the fact that it's something that can't be done in other forms of pornography. It is, because of the nature of hentai, it gives it a chance to be able to do stuff like this. Very unique. So I guess I'll put it here, actually, just because, kind of like it. It's different. Yandere. Now, Yandere, I'm going to put here, because Yandere often ends up going in very bad directions. The concept of a character who's so obsessively in love with you that they're going to do extreme things is kind of sexy, like a kind of an obsession thing. But because of how Yandere often go, I'm going to end up putting it here, because usually it's not a good ending for the main character. Okay, final 2. Okay, so we got yaoi. So yaoi, I'm going to admit, because of the fact that I'm usually more into the male-female ones, I'm going to put this here. There can be some good yaoi stories. And in those situations, I'll be able to get over it being a yaoi. But I wouldn't go to it generally for my hentai needs. Yuri. Now, Yuri is obviously the girl one. And you might expect me to like this a lot more because it's 2 girls. I'm going to put it under a little off-putting. I really do just want a guy and a girl, generally. Now, Yuri, I've actually had a better experience with in terms of reading it compared to yaoi. Just in terms of the types of stories they do, the sympathy of the characters, etc., etc. Like, I've read a really, really funny Yuri recently. I thought it was really funny. And, if yaoi's good enough, I will read it. But, again, you'd have to work quite hard for that one. So I think because of the fact that there's 2 of these for some reason, I think that's the complete list, folks. My God, I don't even know how long this video was. It's quite long. Just to, I'm going to kind of skim through it quite quick. Obviously, the top 3, Gyaru, Housewife, MILF. Like, those are super sexy to me. And then as you can see, like, these would be my next kind of sexy ones. And then once we get down to I'm curious, like, you just have a lot here, but this is stuff that I can kind of get behind a bit. This was a much bigger one than I thought it would be. They don't really carry it away. There's a lot of things that I just kind of don't care about as part of the hentai. I'm more interested in the stuff up here, whether the hentai has this stuff. And this stuff I just kind of put by the wayside. And then these ones are also quite interesting. Like, again, a little off-putting, but if it's good enough overall, then, you know, I can get over some of the stuff. This is where things start getting really questionable, in my opinion. And then this is just, I hate everything that's part of this. It's just disgusting, a lot of this stuff. Anyway, okay, so that's finally that list done. Oh my god. So that was my ranking of so many, I can't remember, is it like 90 hentai tags? Hopefully you folks have gotten a bit of an idea of what type of hentai that I'm drawn to. If there's any tags that you're aware of that I didn't include, of course, leave them in the comments below. That would be greatly appreciated. I think it'd be kind of interesting if this channel does well, if we come back, you know, in several years' time, to do another one of these and to see how my views have changed over time. So I quite, you know, it was quite enjoyable to do all of that. Quite exhausting, I will admit. I'm quite exhausted. I feel the weight of the eyes. But it was quite interesting to share this experience with you. So now I want to hear your folks' opinions. You know, what are some of the tags that you really like? What are some of the tags that you really dislike? And all that good stuff. Also, if you want to check out my reviews of some hentai-related media, you can go over to UK Anime Network to see some of my professional stuff. And of course, you can check out some of my more kind of casual discussion reviews of certain hentai series or manga on this channel. So go ahead and subscribe if you're interested in that kind of content. I want to cover a lot more content in the future. The more people that are subscribed, the more people that are following me, obviously the easier it's going to be for me to be able to do that. So I would greatly appreciate it if you could, you know, like the video, lend your support, all that good stuff. So anyway, with all that being said, this is the end of of this video. So with all that being said done, there's been Owen, also known as Immortallium, you know, living the cultured life. And I will talk to you guys next time.